3 things to never apologize for in a relationship. What if I told you that some of the things you keep apologizing for in your relationship are actually the very things that protect your heart and define your worth? What if the reason you feel drained, confused, or unappreciated isn't because you're asking for too much, but because you've been silencing what matters most? In this video, we're breaking the cycle. We're uncovering 3 things you should never apologize for in a relationship, and why doing so might be the key to finally finding the love that honors who you are. If you've ever felt guilty for speaking your truth, for needing emotional connection, or for setting boundaries that protect your peace, this message is for you. By the end of this video, you won't just understand your value, you'll be ready to walk in it. So don't just watch, lean in. This could change everything. Never apologize for having boundaries. This might be one of the most misunderstood truths in modern relationships. We are often conditioned by culture, family, or past experiences to believe that saying no makes us difficult, cold, or selfish, that setting limits means we're pushing people away, or that we're failing to love properly. But the truth is, boundaries are not barriers to connection. They are the framework for healthy connection. They are not signs of a closed heart, but signs of a mature and self-aware soul that knows its value. In a world where emotional overextension is romanticized, choosing to honor your own space is not only powerful, it's necessary. Boundaries are a declaration of self-respect. They tell the world, I know who I am, and I will not lose myself to make you comfortable. Without them, we sacrifice our mental and emotional well-being just to keep peace. But peace without truth is just a slow erosion of self. When you apologize for having boundaries, you're essentially saying, I'm sorry for honoring what makes me feel safe. I'm sorry for protecting my heart. I'm sorry for choosing peace over prayer. And the moment you start doing that, you start dissolving the very core of your identity in the name of love. But love is never meant to cost you your sense of self. Love isn't proven by how much you can tolerate. Love is seen in how boldly you choose to be whole, even when it challenges the comfort of others. A person with boundaries is not unloving. They're intentional. They are not cold, they are clear. Imagine giving someone access to your most personal thoughts, emotions, and energy without any filter. Just because you're afraid of being seen as distant. That's not vulnerability, that's self-betrayal. Vulnerability thrives when it's wrapped in the safety of limits. We don't owe everyone full access to us just because they want it. Boundaries decide who deserves a seat at the table of your life, not based on how loudly they knock, but how gently they treat the invitation. In a relationship, boundaries teach both people how to love each other better. When you clearly express what is and isn't okay, you're not pushing the other person away, you're actually giving them a map to your heart. You're saying, here's how you can love me best. Here's how I can love you without resentment building inside me. Boundaries eliminate the guesswork and prevent the slow decay that comes from unmet needs and quiet discomfort. And if someone gets angry at your boundary, it's usually because they benefited from your lack of one. Some people will challenge your boundaries, not because they're bad people, but because they've grown used to taking more than you're now willing to give. When that shift happens, guilt can creep in. You'll feel like you're changing the rules, but what you're really doing is finally deciding to play by rules that also protect you. Don't apologize for this. Don't apologize for being the person who learns how to stop bleeding for people who wouldn't offer you a bandage. Don't apologize for realizing that being everything to someone else means being nothing to yourself. Emotional health begins where unnecessary obligation ends. When you build boundaries, you're not shutting people out. You're inviting in only those who are willing to meet you with respect, patience, and honesty. You're not saying, I don't care about you. You're saying, I care about myself enough to not get lost in trying to fix you. That is power. That is freedom. That is love redefined, not as sacrifice, but as self-awareness. When you operate from that place, you stop living in reaction mode. You stop adjusting to everyone's emotional temperature just to keep the connection alive. You start choosing relationships that feel like rest, not resistance. Boundaries are also necessary because not all love is healthy love. Some people come into your life only to take. They take your time, your energy, your kindness, your empathy, and if you don't draw the line, they'll keep taking until there's nothing left. And when you finally gather the courage to say, "This is not okay," they'll call you heartless, dramatic, or cold. That's the trap. That's where you must stand your ground. Because anyone who weaponizes your boundary against you was never really interested in honoring you to begin with. You were not created to be a dumping ground for other people's insecurities. You were not born to be a punching bag for someone's bad day or a silent supporter of someone's toxic behavior just because you love them. Boundaries say, "I will not be treated this way," not because I don't love you, but because I've finally learned to love myself. They say, "I choose relationships where mutual respect is the currency, not control or guilt." When you live without boundaries, you attract people who are comfortable disrespecting you. When you start building them, those people will fall away, but better people will take their place. People who understand your no doesn't mean rejection, it means responsibility. People who don't make you feel guilty for taking care of your soul. People who don't require you to apologize for being a complete human being with emotional limits. This is not easy, especially if you were raised to believe that love means overextending yourself, especially if you were taught that good people never say no, never disappoint others, never make waves. But here's the truth. Good people get tired. Good people burn out. Good people lose themselves in trying to please everyone. So the kindest, bravest, most loving thing you can do is protect yourself so that the love you give comes from a place of overflow, not emptiness. And yes, you will lose people. Not everyone will celebrate your growth. Some will call you changed. But changing doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're evolving. It means you've stopped apologizing for the very thing that's keeping you alive inside. You are not responsible for managing other people's comfort at the expense of your own clarity. You are not here to twist yourself into someone else's ideal version of love. You are here to love freely, but not foolishly, boldly, but not blindly. There is beauty in being able to say, "This is where I end and this is where you begin." It creates space for real connection, not codependency. It gives you back your voice when others try to mute it with guilt. You become the author of your own emotional experience. You reclaim the authority to say, "I matter too." That's not selfishness. That's sacredness. That's how love is supposed to work. And once you taste that kind of self-honoring, you'll never again apologize for drawing lines in the sand. You should never feel sorry for communicating what you want or need in a relationship. Far too many people are taught to be silent about their desires, as if wanting something automatically makes them demanding or needy. But the truth is, emotional honesty is not a flaw. It's a sign of strength. To articulate your needs clearly and unapologetically is not only a powerful form of self-respect, but it is the lifeblood of authentic. Without the courage to express what you need, a relationship becomes a guessing game where assumptions replace understanding and frustration replaces connection. When you suppress your needs to avoid being misunderstood, you begin to train yourself to endure discomfort as if it's normal. Over time, this turns into a pattern where you become disconnected from your own heart, bending and reshaping yourself into what you think your partner wants instead of standing in the truth of what you actually need. This is the fastest way to lose yourself and ultimately to lose the relationship, because relationships that survive on silence don't survive for long. They only appear peaceful until resentment quietly starts to grow in the shadows. Communicating your needs is not an attack on the other person. It's not about placing blame or issuing ultimatums. It's about inviting your partner into your emotional world. It's about giving them a chance to show up for you, not testing their love, but trusting their heart enough to speak your truth. And if you're with someone who genuinely cares, they won't make you feel guilty for asking to be loved in the way you long to be loved. They will lean in, they will listen, they will want to learn. People often fear that if they're too vocal about their needs, they'll drive others away. But the truth is, You don't drive away the right people by being honest, you filter out the wrong ones. The people who can't handle your truth were never going to handle your soul. So why settle for shallow comfort when you could build something deep and lasting, even if it starts with a difficult conversation? True intimacy demands vulnerability, and vulnerability without need is just performance. It's when we say, "I need this," that we allow the other person to meet us where we actually are, not where we pretend to be. You are not too emotional because you need reassurance. You are not too complicated because you crave consistent effort. You are not too sensitive because you want to be heard without being dismissed. Every person carries needs shaped by their past, their personality, and their emotional wiring, and ignoring those needs doesn't make them go away. It only causes them to erupt later, often at the worst possible moment. That's why the most mature relationships are built not on avoiding needs, but on acknowledging them early, clearly, and respectfully. Some people carry wounds from past relationships where they were told that their needs were too much, so now they overfunction in silence, hoping their partner will just figure it out. But relationships aren't built on mind reading. The moment you start waiting for someone to magically understand what you want without saying it is the moment you start preparing for disappointment. You must be brave enough to say, "This is what I need from you, not because I want to control you, but because I want to connect with you." Needs are not burdens, they are bridges. They are opportunities to deepen your bond, not destroy it. They are not demands, they are desires. They are the roadmap to your emotional well-being, and anyone who truly loves you should want to know that map, not ignore it. And if they belittle you for expressing your heart, that says more about their emotional immaturity than it does about your worth. There's an unhealthy belief that if someone loves you, they'll automatically know how to love you, that love will just get it. But love isn't intuitive unless it's informed. People bring different definitions of love into a relationship based on what they saw growing up, what they've experienced, and how they've been hurt. So, while they may love you in their own way, it may not be the way that reaches you. That's why communication is essential, not as a complaint, but as a compass. Saying what you need doesn't make you controlling. Silence makes you resentful, and resentment is the silent killer of relationships. It's the result of all the times you swallowed your truth to keep things peaceful, of all the times you laughed off your pain or downplayed your feelings just to avoid conflict. But peace that comes at the cost of your voice is not peace. It's a slow emotional death. You don't have to choose between connection and honesty. The right connection is built on honesty. The right person wants your truth, even when it's uncomfortable. The moment you start saying, "I'm sorry" for having emotional needs is the moment you start reinforcing the lie that love means erasing yourself. But the strongest relationships are the ones where both people are allowed to show up fully, unmasked, unfiltered, and unapologetically real. Where you don't have to tiptoe around your truth, but instead you walk boldly into it together. And yes, being honest about your needs might mean facing rejection. It might mean someone tells you they can't give you what you need, and that hurts. But it's a gift to know that early rather than later, because love that can't meet you where you are will only disappoint you over time. Love that ignores your voice becomes a trap, not a home. And no matter how much you care for someone, you cannot keep silencing yourself just to make the relationship work. It doesn't work when one person is shrinking so the other can breathe freely. There is also power in learning to express your needs without blame. Not, "You never do this," or "You make me feel," but instead, "When this happens, I feel," or "What I really need is." That shift in language can transform the entire dynamic. It creates space for the other person to respond without feeling attacked. It creates a path for understanding instead of defensiveness. And if the person still refuses to meet you halfway, then at least you know you did your part with integrity. Never forget that your needs matter just as much as anyone else's. You are not here to simply serve others emotionally while starving yourself. Relationships are a two-way exchange, not a one-sided performance. You deserve to be poured into just as much as you pour into others, and the only way that happens is if you speak up. Don't wait until you're exhausted, broken, or bitter. Be honest while the connection is still alive. Don't settle for emotional crumbs just to keep someone close. You are not created to be invisible. Being honest about your needs is the highest form of self-respect. It says, I know what my heart requires, and I will no longer apologize for protecting it. It says, I'm not afraid to lose someone who's only comfortable with a quiet version of me. And most importantly, it says, I choose to build love on truth, not tension. You should never apologize for expecting respect in a relationship. Respect is not a luxury or a bonus. It is the foundation on which all healthy and meaningful relationships are built. Without it, love becomes unpredictable, chaotic, and eventually toxic. Respect is what allows two individuals to feel safe in their connection. It communicates value, worth, and dignity. And it's what tells you that you matter, not just in moments of romance, but in every moment in between. Expecting respect is not being demanding. It is being conscious of your identity, your value, and the kind of love you deserve. And it is time to stop feeling guilty for wanting to be treated like you actually matter. Too many people are told they are being too sensitive or dramatic when they point out disrespectful behavior. They're told to relax, to take a joke, to not overthink things. And over time, they begin to believe that asking for basic human decency makes them a burden. But the truth is, you are not hard to love. You've just been around people who struggle to love in a healthy way. When you expect respect, you are not raising the bar too high. You are finally refusing to crawl under a bar that was never meant to be so low. Respect shows up in how someone speaks to you when they're angry. It's in whether they remember the things that matter to you. It's in how they respond when you say no. It's in whether they honor your time, your presence, your energy. You don't have to earn respect by being perfect. Respect is something that every person in a relationship should bring with them from day one. It's not a reward for compliance. It's not something you unlock by tolerating more. And the moment someone treats you like it's optional is the moment you must remind yourself that walking away is not weakness, it is wisdom. When you start expecting respect, you will see who was truly for you and who was only around because you allowed yourself to be disrespected in silence. Disrespect doesn't always show up in dramatic forms like shouting or cheating. Sometimes it shows up quietly, in forgetting what you said, in laughing at your boundaries, in always taking but rarely giving, in ignoring your efforts while expecting you to notice theirs. And if you're not careful, you'll begin to normalize this behavior. You'll start convincing yourself that it's not that bad or that it's just how relationships are. But deep down, something in you will ache. Something in you will know that this isn't what you were created for. You were not made to be tolerated. You were made to be treasured. And respect is the first sign that someone sees your value beyond what you do for them. It's the recognition that your thoughts, your feelings, and your presence matter. When someone respects you, they don't try to change you into what they prefer. They honor who you are. They don't punish your honesty. They welcome it. They don't use love as a weapon or withdraw affection to manipulate. They understand that love without respect is just control dressed up as care. And yet many people settle for relationships where they constantly have to ask for the bare minimum. They hope that if they love hard enough or stay long enough, the other person will eventually change. But here's the truth. If someone has no intention of respecting you, no amount of waiting or loving will change that. You cannot teach someone to see your worth by staying silent about their disrespect. You cannot fix someone's emotional immaturity by shrinking your standards. The only thing you'll end up doing is breaking your own heart in the process. There comes a time in every relationship when you have to ask yourself a difficult question. Am I being respected here? Not just loved, not just wanted, not just needed, respected. Because without respect, love becomes painful. It turns into obligation. It feels like walking on eggshells, constantly questioning yourself, constantly trying to prove that you're worthy. And no relationship, no matter how long it's lasted, is worth losing your self-worth over. You deserve someone who listens when you speak, not just hears the words, but actually leans in to understand. You deserve someone who doesn't make you feel stupid for expressing your feelings. You deserve someone who celebrates your growth rather than feels threatened by it. You deserve someone who doesn't need to belittle you to feel powerful. You deserve someone who never makes you feel like a burden simply for existing. And none of that is too much to ask. It's not a fantasy. It's the bare minimum of healthy connection. Respect isn't just what someone says to your face. It's also how they talk about you when you're not around. It's whether they defend you or degrade you in conversations with others. It's whether they keep your secrets safe or use your vulnerability against you in moments of tension. It's whether they create an environment where you can be fully yourself without fear of judgment or comparison. And when that kind of respect is missing, your spirit feels it. You may try to deny it. You may tell yourself it's just a rough patch, but your soul always knows when it's not being honored. People often say relationships are about compromise, and that's true, but compromise doesn't mean compromising your self-worth. It doesn't mean allowing someone to treat you like an afterthought while you keep showing up like a priority. It doesn't mean tolerating behavior that makes you question your value. Healthy compromise happens between two people who respect each other enough to meet in the middle, not between someone who demands and someone who silently complies. If you're the only one doing the bending, it's not compromise, it's self-erasure. And when you begin to expect respect and hold people accountable for how they treat you, some will walk away. Let them. Because if your standards offend someone, it's only because they benefited from your lack of them. Let your life be too full of truth for anyone who wants to live in denial. Let your spirit be too grounded for anyone who treats you like a second choice. The more you love and respect yourself, the more you'll attract relationships that reflect that love. You will no longer beg to be seen. You will no longer chase people who only offer crumbs. You will wait confidently, patiently, for the kind of love that doesn't just feel good but does good. And yes, expecting respect will require courage. You will have to speak up when it's uncomfortable. You will have to say, "This isn't okay," even when your voice shakes. You will have to leave situations where you're not valued, even if your heart is still invested. But on the other side of that courage is freedom, peace, joy, and relationships that feel like home. Not because they're easy, but because they're safe. Expecting respect is not pride, it's not arrogance. It's simply a recognition that your heart was not designed to be handled carelessly, that your time is precious, that your energy is sacred, and that your presence is a gift. You don't have to yell to be heard. You don't have to fight to be seen. You don't have to apologize for wanting to be treated with basic human decency. You only have to decide that you're done settling for anything less. In every meaningful relationship, the greatest act of love you can offer yourself is refusing to apologize for who you truly are. When you stop apologizing for having standards, for speaking your truth, and for expecting to be treated with the respect you deserve, you reclaim your power. You stop shrinking to fit someone else's comfort zone and start standing tall in the light of self-worth. Love should never require the sacrifice of your dignity. It should never ask you to remain silent where your voice needs to be heard. It should never make you feel guilty for being human with emotions, needs, and boundaries. You were not created to be invisible, to be tolerated, or to constantly explain your value. You were created to love and be loved in a way that honors your soul, challenges your growth, and protects your peace. Never apologize for wanting that. Never apologize for requiring that, because the right person will never ask you to. Thank you for watching and for giving your heart the space to hear this message. If this resonated with you, it's because you're ready to elevate the way you love and the way you are loved. Stay strong, stay true, and never forget, you are worthy of a relationship where you never have to apologize for being exactly who you are.